I feel satiated. I'm not craving sweets and treats and all these things. And I don't feel that I need to eat multiple times a day. I go, it's all you just eat red meat pretty much and just all animal protein and fat. They're like, you're going to die. I'm not coaching you. I was like, okay, great. Thanks. And I go to another coach or somebody who's run Ironmans. I said exactly the same thing. You're going to die. There's no way you can do this without a bunch of carbohydrates. Food is my fuel, and that it's something to help me for longevity. I don't count the protein. I just say, okay, about 2 pounds gets me full and satiated. That's all I eat. If I want more, I'll have more.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We have with us Tony today, who's going to share his success stories. Tony, good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm also doing well. Where are you located?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up around, but spent a lot of my youth up there until I was about, I think 15 or so, somewhere in that. I was in Chicago Heights and then just across the border in Indiana, in Dyer, Indiana, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but anyway, it's in that area. Where, so have you always been from Chicago or did you move there?
Always been from, I grew up just outside of Chicago most of my life. And then probably 15, maybe a little over 15 years ago is when I moved to the city for college, and I just never left. I love the city, even though it gets down to like -20 sometimes. I don't see myself living anywhere else. Yeah.
I remember some of those winters in Chicago are pretty tough when it's cold and windy and all that stuff. Nice wind chill. I guess we'll get started here. Why don't you just walk us through your background, where you were, and how you got to where you are today. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So that kind of all starts when I was a young kid. I was really overweight. I was just eating out of the boxes. My family, they did two things that were probably not the best. Was one, we were on the standard American diet, eating a lot of fast food and just going out to eat a lot and picking up the McDonald's. But also I'm Italian too. So when we would get together and eat, we're eating pastas and the focaccia bread and desserts. And it was just our family cultural experience. So that, coupled with the standard American diet, I started gaining a lot of weight when I was a kid. And I just had this bad relationship with food for a very long time. I was getting closer to high school, and the way I perceive myself, I go, I'm this really athletic kind of guy. But in reality, no, I was very overweight and I had to do something about it. So I started a workout, and this is before YouTube, right? They had muscle magazines and that was pretty much it. And nobody really had any idea of what working out looked like when you're younger or how to actually eat. So I just started doing things on my own, doing lots of running. I got into wrestling, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I can never give wrestling back what it's given to me in terms of discipline and just hard work. But the thing that stuck with me a little bit was my relationship with food got even worse. So now I think you do some jujitsu too a little bit, going into these calorie deficits to really get on weight and cutting your hydration down to make weight on a scale. Doing that weekly really took a toll on me, coming from somebody who had trouble with food in the beginning since they were young. Now I'm cutting calories. And every time I get out of wrestling season, I would balloon up, and then I would cut weight. And I would balloon up again. And it just was unsustainable. And I remember after my senior year, I said, I don't want to wrestle anymore. I love the sport. I ended up coaching it for 10 years, but I don't want to wrestle anymore. So when that happened, I had nothing to look forward to in terms of athletics. I just gained, I think, about 50 pounds. I wrestled 152, 160 my senior year. And then my freshman year of college, I was 215, almost 220. I gained a lot of weight. And so just going through college, I was going to be a PE teacher. I started taking care of myself. And then just out of college, and again, I got a little bit into shape, but I was still yo-yoing all the time, yo-yoing up and down. I would lose weight, gain weight. And that'd just be my life. And then I started working out this gym in Chicago. It's called Monkey Bar Gym Chicago. It's a good gym, and it got me exposed to kettlebells and functional training and unconventional training, which was great. but they had this big plant-based push. And they would tell the members how good being plant-based was. And this is in the height of Forks Over Knives, and Rip Esselstyn had the Firehouse books out and things like that. So I went full in on vegan. I was vegan for 2 years, and it was good at first. I lost more weight. I felt really good. And then within that 2 years, towards the end, I just couldn't sustain it. I was eating lots of carbohydrates. I was eating things out of boxes, tortillas, hummus, so many big ass salads, because I was always hungry. And then I was starting to get bloated a lot. I just kept getting bloated. Lots of rice, lots of sweet potatoes, black beans, quinoa. I can't tell you how much quinoa I had in my life. And then my hair started falling out. And one of the worst things was I started to get blepharitis in my eyes. And that's the inflammation of the eyelids. Mm-hmm. And I've told people it's not the biggest deal in the world. Out of all of the autoimmune issues, there's people have way worse than I do. But it was the most annoying thing ever. Just every single month, the doctors would give doxycycline to get the swelling down. And it's just every month it would just blow up. So I had to deal with that and the gut issue. And I just gave up on veganism and I went back to the standard American diet. And then I kept hearing about, it's like 2017, I started hearing about keto. I'm like, what is this? And I I can eat meat and vegetables. I go, okay, I love meat. I love steak. I love pork. I'm like, let's do this. So I started doing that and felt better. But maybe a year into it, I'm like, this gets really complicated. I don't know what do I have today? Because I had this many net carbs and then I had this many Brussels sprouts, and can I have this much fat? And it started to get real complicated. And that's when I stumbled upon your podcast with Joe Rogan, which probably 90% of the carnivores, maybe more, can trace their lineage of carnivore to you in that episode. And everybody got really just intrigued about that. And I found it right before COVID. I think it was like 2018 or something. So I started thinking about carnivore. I started thinking about going to carnivore. I was doing like ketovore more. Then we got locked down with the pandemic and everything. And that's when like my diet went bad again. I'm inside. Everybody thought we're going to be inside for 2 weeks, but we were inside for way longer than that, and just eating fast food, not taking care of myself, trying to get workouts in, but no gyms were open. So I was like, man, this stinks. I've gained a bunch of weight back. I was 200 plus again. It was bad. And then I just decided to make a change. I said, you know what? I have some kettlebells. I have a buddy that has kettlebells. I'm just going to do some kettlebell workouts a couple days a week. And I think I'm going to try this carnivore thing. So I tried carnivore and I absolutely loved it. The biggest thing that I realized was my relationship with food was way better, and better than when I was on keto. I feel satiated. I'm not craving sweets and treats and all these things. And I don't feel that I need to eat multiple times a day. I would just have 1 or 2 meals a day, just primarily ribeyes or ground beef. And I felt great. I felt amazing. And then I just was feeling so good and in shape by working out at home. And I was running a lot just because there's nothing to do. Everything was shut down. I decided to sign up for an Ironman. And yeah, it was sign up for an Ironman because I've seen some friends do it in the past and it was a bucket list. I said, if I'm going to do an Ironman, this is the time. But I reached out to, I think you were on his podcast, Casey Ruff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Casey Ruff. I found him through Carnivore Cast or something like that. I reached out to Casey Ruff, and prior to reaching out to him, I got a lot of coaches that I was talking to because I've done marathons before. I haven't done a lot of biking. I haven't done a lot of swimming. I went to these coaches and I said, hey, I'm doing the carnivore diet. They go, what the fuck? What the hell are you talking about? What is that? I go, it's all you just eat red meat pretty much and just all animal protein and fat. They're like, you're going to die. I'm not coaching you. I was like, okay, great. Thanks. And I go to another coach or somebody who's run Ironmans. I said exactly the same thing. You're going to die. There's no way you can do this without a bunch of carbohydrates. Like you need to have 100 carbs every hour for your race. And I'm like, man, I just know how I feel when I take in all those carbohydrates. I know how I feel eating like that. I don't want to do this. And I go, there's got to be another way. And I always give credit to Casey Ruff because I got on a phone call with him and I told him my plan. I said, I want to do it carnivore. I want to do it mainly training fasted and run on my own body fat, be fat adapted. And he goes, oh, it's a great idea. You should do that. And mind you, everybody I've talked to before that said I was going to die. And I'm like, I can do that. He goes, it looks like you're just looking for permission to do this. So I said, he goes, yeah, this is great. I can give you some tips to help you out, but sounds really good. So then I started training all on carnivore. I did a half Ironman, fasted, just ran off my own body fat. And then I knew, I was like, something's up, like something really works here, because if I'm able to operate at a high level, run a half Ironman, go on a 100-mile bike ride too, and not eat anything and just run on my own body fat, I go, why do people need to eat 3-4 times a day? Why do I have to do all of this and have 4 or 5 meals a day? And I'm doing way more than in a work day than most people. And I'm having one meal, if not eating at all. And I was like, there is something to this. And that's what got me on the path of being on carnivore, but also like coaching people on carnivore and this being a part of my lifestyle.
So did you manage to do the Ironman then? Were you able to finish that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I did the Ironman in Tempe. I was supposed to do it in Indiana, but I got in a bike crash on the Chicago lakefront. Skateboard flew right into my bike, which sucked, but I ended up going to Tempe about a month after. And it was really my pre-race meal the night before was 1, 2, 3. I had like 4 or 5 patties of like cheeseburgers because there's nothing around Tempe. It's like a college town. Mm-hmm. So I had like 3 or 4 cheeseburgers with some bacon on it. That was my pre-meal. And then I just had coffee in the morning and then I did the race. Swim was almost expected. Didn't really eat anything. Transitioning. I get on my bike. This is where it gets really, I've never wanted to quit anything as much in my life as the bike in Tempe, but we had 23-mile-an-hour headwinds going up. And if anybody knows anything about Tempe, it's only one hill that you hit and it doesn't go down and up like other races. It's continuously up. So you have no brakes. We're going at 23-mile-an-hour headwinds. I'm like getting crushed. And then you go down and you're going like 30 miles an hour on the bike, just your bike shaking. You have to do it 3 times. My only nutrition was I had a fat bomb, the macadamia fat bomb. And that was pretty much it on my bike. So I ended up finishing. And then all I had was LMNT, shout out Rob Wolf, right? LMNT electrolytes. And that's all I ate pretty much. I had on my run, I felt great. I think I had a UCAN, which is a gel that's very low carbohydrates. And I would say I definitely had under 100. I would even push it to say I had maybe 50 carbs it took me 15 hours. The bike took me way longer than I expected, but it took me 15 hours to complete, probably under 50 carbohydrates and just running on my own body fat. And the biggest thing is when I ended the race, and this was a big turning point for me, I was standing in line at the food tent. And there's like waters and whatever. And this girl was like, I can't look at food. I've had so many gel blocks in my stomach. My stomach hurts so much. She goes, how many gel blocks did you have? I go, none. She goes, are you serious? What'd you eat? I go, not a lot. And I just told her my nutrition was, she goes, that's fucking crazy. She goes, how the hell did you finish? I go, I do the carnivore diet. She goes, what the fuck is that? And that kind of got me to really believe into this diet. Because if I could accomplish that just off my own body fat and just based on the way I've been training, it just makes a lot of sense. I just felt so optimal.
Yes, congratulations. That's awesome. It's inspiring. Let me ask you, you said you went vegan for a couple of years and you really like meat. How did you handle that, knowing that you truly like meat, but you're not eating it? Did you like crave it at times, or did you have the fake meat, or how did you get around that?
It went a couple different ways. One, it was hard because my family was like not unaccepting of it, but my family was like, that's fucking, what are you doing? You're just eating all plants. I go, yeah, it's the most nutritious. And watch the documentary Forks Over Knives. You'll learn. Because I thought I was brainwashed. I thought, oh, this is all the right stuff. But yeah, I would go to places. Chicago has a big vegan scene, and you can go to different diners and different places, and it's just fake meat. And I just found myself eating the fake burger or a veggie burger or the seitan or whatever it may be. And it sucked. It never tasted as good. But I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I need to be eating plant-based because this is what everybody's telling me is the most healthy. And I want to be healthy. I want to lose weight. I want to athletically perform. We've seen Game Changers, right, on Netflix, and everybody wants to be an elite vegan athlete. All that stuff's been debunked. But the biggest thing was trying to eat all these things and feel satiated. Just really, that was the hardest thing for me because when I tell you I ate morning, noon, and night, because I still was training. I was still trying to be athletic. I was still lifting weights, but I would eat all day quinoa, sweet potatoes, black beans, and it would just really mess up my stomach and gut. And I just felt like there's a tipping point where I couldn't sustain it anymore. I felt like if I kept going this route of veganism, I might get really sick.
Yeah, fair enough. You tried it. Like I said, you've tried both. And when you went vegan, your family's like, what the heck are you doing? Just eating nothing but plants. What do they think about not just eating just meat? They think you're still equally as crazy? Probably, I imagine. I don't know. What do they think about that?
I think so. It's funny. I do get this question a lot. And again, it's a big Italian family. So now that I said I'm just eating all meat, they're like, oh, what the fuck you doing? What is this? You do all vegetables and now all meat? I said, yeah, I'm trying this. At first it was the keto, but then when it went real carnivore, they're like, whoa. The biggest thing, at first they gave me a little bit of pushback. They're like, you're not going to have no pasta. You're not going to have cannolis. You're not going to have tiramisu. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you need to eat these things. Like, these are like, it's a celebration. I go, no, because I know if I have to be an abstainer from those things, because if I don't abstain, if I have one little thing, because again, I have that really bad relationship with food, I will continuously go off the handles and just eat and eat. So I had to stay away from those things. But then my family started to realize how good of shape I got in. Like I'm a little bit bigger now in terms of like muscular. I've grown in size because I've just been doing more strength training than endurance training. But they were like, dude, what are you doing? I said, I'm telling you, all I eat is just a animal-based diet. I just eat eggs, bacon, beef, butter. And I go, that's it. And they're like, holy shit, you look great. And my family is not the healthiest. It's just, that's the way they grew up eating. They don't know anything else. My family's all bigger. My dad had a triple bypass. He's a smoker all of his life. My mom and my dad are boomers. They don't really know about food. They know about cereal boxes. They know about those things, but they don't really know too much about food. So when I went to this, I think I've not converted them fully, but I think more of my family they can get around eating more animal protein because they see this is what I do. And they're like, wow, you look really great. You're like really in shape. And they're starting to get on it. I think they're on this bandwagon more than the vegan bandwagon for sure.
Yeah, the food's going to be better for sure. So let me ask you, because you said you developed this condition called blepharitis, which you said eyelid swelling and inflammation. How did that resolve at some point? Because you said you developed that while you're vegan. Did it continue while you're back on standard diet, or what's the story on that now?
Yeah, that's one of the telltale signs for me that I was doing the right diet or I was on the right path. I was doing keto, and then my flare-ups were still happening, but not as often. And then I started doing the carnivore. And then at one point, maybe like a few months after carnivore, I was like, I haven't had to go to the doctor to get doxycycline. I'm like, that's interesting. And I didn't think anything of it because it used to be like I'd have to, if I felt it coming on, I used to do hot compresses on both my eyes. That's what they told me. It never worked. But after maybe a couple months, I just started to realize, hey, this isn't coming back. Holy shit. There's nothing else I could contribute it to besides the carnivore diet. And I'll feel some tingling every now and again, like it's about to come back, but then it doesn't. And I haven't had a flare up 2 years more, maybe over 2 years. And doxycycline, I don't know if anybody's ever taken that in long periods of time. Like it really messes up your gut. It doesn't feel good to take those things. And thank God I can get off of that. But yeah, I haven't had a flare up in a very long time.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. And so you said you found that you can eat less frequently. How does your hunger and your satiety compare vegan diet or standard diet versus carnivore diet? Where are you noticing differences?
I've gone back and forth on this a few times. I've just been more intuitive with it now of listening to my body. I like doing OMAD, 1 meal a day. I would typically have around 2 pounds of beef, whether it be ground beef and ribeye or just ribeye. But 2 pounds of beef in a sitting for me, I'm about 185 pounds now. So it's a little bit over a gram per pound of body weight. So sit around 185, have 2 pounds. And most of the time that will be completely fine. I won't be hungry after that. And I'm satiated. I have more time to do whatever the hell I want to do. I don't have to worry about cooking. I don't have to worry about eating. I have steaks in the freezer. I have ground beef in the freezer. I take it out in the morning, come back at 4 o'clock after work or something. And then I can just cook my meal and be done with the day. The satiation piece was huge for me because being on the vegan diet, constantly eating just so much quinoa, so much. I have breakfast, I have lunch, I've had snacks. I'm eating granola by the handfuls, so many nuts. And then I started vegan. I started to lose weight in the beginning because I'm just cutting all the crap out. But then I started to gain weight because I'm just eating handfuls of nuts. Oh, it's good because they're vegan, right? I'm going to have this tortilla wrap thing. Oh, it's vegan. It's good. And I started gaining weight from that. But because I just have to eat all the time. Now I go back and forth of having 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day. And there's days that I'm just not that hungry. And I'd be like, I'm just going to fast today. And especially if I get into a situation where there's a lot of unhealthy options, it takes a little bit of willpower. But once you get used to it, you have this food freedom. I don't need to eat. I go to a party, I go to whatever. There's no healthy options. You don't have to eat. You can abstain from those things. You can be fine. You can have water, whatever, and still be social and be fine and not have to eat anymore. And I say fasting is a superpower. If you're able to do it and get through that kind of mental, because we have this mental connection with enjoyment in food. If you get past that, you'll be fine. And it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of discipline. But once you get past that, I don't view food the same way anymore. I used to look at food, and again, like I mentioned, the wrestling, food was numbers to me. I'm looking at my food, and the food is what's going to be on the scale. Like, how much is the weight of this food? How many calories are in this food? Now I look at my food as my fuel, and that it's something to help me for longevity. I don't count the protein. I just say, okay, about 2 pounds gets me full and satiated. That's all I eat. If I want more, I'll have more. If I'm full, I stop eating. Sometimes I'm full. I'll have one more bite. I'm like, okay, that's enough. But if you put a cake in front of me, I'm going to eat that cake. I'll eat the whole friggin' thing. There's no stopping me. But yeah, it's just the satiation, and I'm more intuitive. I like OMAD for the convenience piece of I'm eating 1 time a day and I don't have to worry about the rest of the day. But if I want to, like this morning, I made a bunch of bacon. I have 8 strips of bacon and half a dozen eggs, which is good. I might eat later. Depends how I feel. I still have a training session I'm going to do. I'm going to swing some kettlebells and stuff. If I feel like I want to eat it later, I'll eat. If I don't, I won't.
Yeah. I think most creatures do it. If they're not hungry, they don't eat, which is not how humans do it a lot of times. Hey, so a lot of people will say, I can't do this diet because it's too expensive. Has that been an impediment for you, or is it less expensive, more expensive than what you're consuming before?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I do get that question a lot. And especially nowadays, the $20 bill is the new $50 bill. So as we all are feeling it a little bit, but there's ways around it. It could be expensive, obviously. You have to be a little bit creative. So a couple things that I do. First and foremost, I probably was spending way more money eating plant-based than I do now for just the purpose of, and there's a lot of people on this screen right now, and you can give me a thumbs up, but how many times have you had a thing of salad and you've thrown it out and it's been mush at the bottom? Yeah, like I said, yeah. I've done that so many times being a vegan because I didn't want to get to the salad or I didn't finish it or whatever. And it goes bad. You throw it away. I can't tell you how much stuff I threw away. It's so wasteful. But now what I do is I do a couple different things. I go to a really big, I go to like Restaurant Depot or like you can go to a big Costco or something like that. And I get a primal cut. So you get it all together. So a huge primal cut is a little bit cheaper per pound. And I'll bring that sucker home. And then I had a buddy whose family's in restaurants. He showed me kind of some tips and tricks on how to cut it up, but I'll cut it individually and I'll package it. And each ribeye will cost me per pound, $10 per pound, which is it's not bad. You go to the conventional store, $18, $22 a pound in Chicago, at least. It's getting out of control. But I'll put them all in the freezer. I'll keep eggs. I can put bacon in the freezer. I can bacon in the fridge. So bacon and eggs, butter, steak, ground beef. And ground beef you can get for $4.99 a pound. So if you're going to put dollars and cents to it, I can probably get away, if I really wanted to, 2 pounds of ground beef, $10 a day. You can go to McDonald's. I don't know if you've seen the prices at McDonald's lately. It's a big thing now on social media. Them talking about like how a sandwich is now $7 at McDonald's. But I can eat better than most places for $10 a day. So for me, I don't waste anything. The only thing that kind of goes in the garbage is the plasticking that it comes into or what I package it in. And I just had a conversation. I was on Dr. Kilt's not that long ago. And we were talking about this, how we don't waste as much. And I said, you know what? Now that we're talking about this, I bought a roll of garbage bags when I first moved into my first apartment, or not my first apartment, a year ago. And I moved to another apartment and I still have over a year ago, the same thing of garbage bags. And it wasn't even a big box. I was like, damn, I don't throw out a lot of garbage. It's just all the plastic that's it. And then egg cartons, nothing else.
Yeah, that's something I noticed. I've got some relatives who are vegetarian, and when they come to visit, the trash output goes up like 300% at least. They bring all their own food with them because we're like, I got steaks, dude, and so they're bringing all their stuff, and it's comical to see all the waste. It's not comical. It's just it's impressive how much more waste there is with that, and how little waste there is with carnivore. Let me ask you about have you had any negative effects from the diet so far? Anything that you can think has been a negative for you?
There's the one negative, but everybody's going to go through this, is how much fat that you have in your diet is relative to you and your body. And that's when figuring out that piece. So if I have too much fat, like I'm going to the bathroom too much, which not pleasant by any means. But when I dialed that in and dialed back the fat, because I cook things in butter. I have a lot of animal fats. I've done tallow. I've just messed around with what tastes the best and how much fat to put in. I know there's people that like cook things in bacon grease. I know that for me, I can't really, if I do bacon, I don't save the grease. I've tried to cook in it and make some tallows and things like that. But that's one of the hardest pieces, is trying to figure that out. But I can't really think of, the hard part about carnivore is the social. If I had to pick something, it's the social piece, because that's where people run into the most difficulty. Because if I'm doing things at my home on my own terms, it's easy. But we all have to live our lives, right? We have to go out and be family members. We have to be coworkers. And when you want to do carnivore, you have to either be abstainer from whatever, or you're going to have to mix shift something at the restaurant so that they can give you like a meat option. And it's crazy, like paying for a cheeseburger with no bun, and you're still paying $16 for just a patty that you can get at home for a quarter of the price.
Yeah, it is interesting with that. As far as you said, you got down, when you used to have these sort of weird relationships with food, first being overweight as a kid, and then obviously the weight cuts for wrestling, and then rebounding back to that. How do you feel about it now? Normal? Is your food relationship normalized for you?
Big time, man. Big time. That, for me, a lot of the low points in life were when I was super overweight. A lot of low points where I felt very less confident in myself is when I'm overweight and not going to events, because I know I gained 20 pounds is one of those things where I don't want to be in that space again. I don't want to be in that physical, but mental space as well. So for me, for example, I went on a coffee date with this girl, and she wanted to have a pumpkin thing, right? Whatever it may be. I know it's fall, the pumpkin stuff. And I would have normally just been like, no, I'm not going to. She's, do you want to split this? And I would have been normally like, no, I have to abstain. I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll have a bite. And in my mind, we're sitting there, we're sharing it a little bit, and we're having coffee and we're talking. And I don't know if this is true. I've heard this multiple times, but maybe you can fact check it. But you go to a fancy restaurant and they cut the bread. They don't cut the bread all the way because it's meant to be ripped apart and given. That's why we say breaking bread with one another. So it's like a sharing thing. So in my mind, I was like, oh, I'll break bread with this girl. I'll share this thing. So I had one bite of it, and then we had coffees, and then she took the rest home, and because she didn't finish it. Me knowing myself, if I have one bite of something a year ago, I will eat the whole thing. I cannot stop myself. I tried implementing fruit in my diet. I've learned very quickly that can escalate into something really bad for me. I will just continue to eat fruit, and I can never be satisfied. I can just keep eating it. And then I feel crappy, and it just messes me up. So now I've gotten to the point where I have this food freedom that if I go a place, I can have something, a bite of something, and be okay. Or I can abstain from it and still be okay. And to me, that's a big win for just me in general. That's a huge win, because before I just continuously would eat things and go off the bandwagon. And since I cheated once, I'm just going to continue. The weekend shot, I might as well just keep going. But now I'm not like that anymore. Carnivore has given me food freedom that I've never thought I would have in my life.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, whether you do it as a temporary intervention or as a long-term, dietary strategy. I think it does allow a lot of people to reset their relationship with food to where it's not this sort of binge eating, hyper addictive maladaptation to nutrition. What about, you'd mentioned, I think you said when you were a younger kid, overweight, depressed, how's your your ability to think, your mood, overall mental health, how has that been changed? Has it been changed at all, or do you notice any differences?
Yeah, mental clarity is a thing. You hear it a lot as people get into these elimination diets, mental clarity, you hear it. And as you go through the transition period from just standard American diet or a plant-based diet into more of an animal-based or carnivore, you don't notice it right away. You don't notice it. And then there's this one point where you feel very alert. You're clear-headed. You're on the emotional level. You're pretty stable as well. And then I look back, I'm like, man, I never used to feel like this. I was so used to feeling shitty. That was my normal. And I think that happens to a lot of people. We grow up fast food, shit out of a box, whatever, and we eat. We have tons of inflammation in the body. And then when you take all that stuff away, you're like, wow, I feel really good. But you can't comprehend it as much because back then that was normal. Now this is my new normal, and I'm never going back. But so mental clarity is a thing. My confidence, and not in terms of I look better, but my confidence has changed. The way that I approach things, my attitude has changed a lot. And I really contribute that to the diet, because before I didn't feel this way.
You said you managed to get through the Ironman. What are you doing athletic-wise these days? Are you doing anything different now, or what are you just regular training, or what are you up to?
I actually attempted This is a funny one. I had a bow out for injury issues, but I actually was attempting the Guinness Book of World Records Turkish Get Up Challenge, the 24-hour challenge. I had hand surgery when I was a kid, and I was in the middle of a 3-hour Turkish Get Up workout, and my hand started to hurt, so I stopped, and then I couldn't feel my hand for 3 days because I still have some nerve damage from the hand surgery. So I had to bow out from that. That was going to be the big endeavor. But now is really my strength training is the priority. I prioritize my strength training. I tell people all the time, and I have clients and people come to me. I say, listen, I train 3 to 5 hours a week, 5 hours being the max of strength training. Cardiovascularly, I'll do, the other day I did a 4-mile run, whatever. I don't do these big endurance bouts anymore. And I tell people, I didn't do the Ironman to be healthy. I did the Ironman to complete the Ironman. And I think people get into doing endurance races or whatever because they want to be healthy. Yeah, it could kickstart. Long term, it's not for me. I don't think that's the way to approach it. Everybody's different. They could be doing tons of Ironmans, and for them that works. But for me, it's just prioritizing strength training, real quality strength training, and a little bit of cardiovascular light movement throughout the week, and then do something fun. That's my main thing now. If I can free up my time I'm in a softball league right now. We're 0-2, but it's okay. We're going to get there. Playing softball. I do beach volleyball in the summers. That's where my passion is really growing is, I want to be strong. Cardiovascular. I want to have some gas in the tank, but being able to do things with my friends and be able to live my life is the priority at this point. Be strong, cardiovascular as well, but get out there and play and do things and do hikes with your family. That's my goal. That's my life goal now.
Yeah, nice. How do you handle, since you're doing a lot of outdoor activities and presumably sweating a lot, how are you managing electrolytes? Is that an issue for you? Do you supplement electrolytes, or do you not worry about that?
Yeah, I'm a big LMNT fan. I've been using LMNT for 3 years now. And that's one of the hard things to get over as carnivore or as anybody using. The LMNT has 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And when you tell people you're taking 1, if not 3 a day, they're like, whoa, that's a lot. I was like, well, your body needs the sodium. And for electrolytes, I typically do an LMNT pack, maybe 2 a day. If I'm doing something more extensive, longer distance, hot out, I might have 3. And I just like the flavors. They go down pretty easy, but I also know I need the sodium in my body. And I salt all of my stuff. I salt my steak, my eggs, and all those things. So I'm definitely getting enough, but that's a big difference too. Also in the term of cravings, if you have an LMNT packet and you're craving food and you have one of those and you just gun it down with a bottle of water, you're like, oh, I'm not hungry anymore. You probably had low sodium and that's why you're craving food. But I'll have 2. And if it's a real intense day, 3 packets of electrolytes, and I salt everything.
Yeah. And a lot of people are concerned about over-consuming sodium. The RDA for sodium is 2,000 milligrams a day. 3 of them would, plus the extra salt, you probably double that at least. Do you have problems with blood pressure? Have you ever had your blood pressure checked, and was it ever high, or have you ever known?
My blood pressure wasn't high. I went a year ago. Blood pressure wasn't high. It wasn't a thing. That was all normal across the board. My doctor, she's not my real doc. I had a doctor before they retired, so now I have just regular people. I don't really have a doctor for my primary care anymore. But she's going off the list and she's looking at my numbers and she's, oh, you got high cholesterol. I was like, oh wow, okay. She goes, oh, I think I need to put you on statins. I go, I'm good, no thanks. And this is peak. I had just finished the Ironman. I was feeling great. I was in the best shape of my life. I'm like, there's no way I'm going on statins. I'm 34 years old. She goes, I think you really need to be. And she was pushing it. And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to go on statins. So that was over a year ago. And But that was her concern. And then she just went through the laundry list of questions and then set me on my way. So not a lot of faith in the medical industry right now, but no, blood pressure was fine. It was normal in their ranges, but my cholesterol was a little high, and I just had to refuse the statins.
Yeah, that's a very nuanced topic, but I've seen that before for sure. And like I said, you ultimately have to make the decision you think is best for your own particular life. Statins will lower your cholesterol. There are some side effects that affect a lot of people, not all, but many. But anyway, what about as far as fat and protein ratios? Are you a guy that likes to go really high fat? Are you more protein based, or where do you think about it?
And I think it's two things. It's an individual piece, right? And it's also of like the types of food that you like to eat. The king in my kitchen is ribeye. I like ribeye. You got close to the 1-to-1, as much protein and fat. To me, it's complete. When you get into adding bacon and you're getting into adding the butters and things like that, you have to be careful because you can overdo the fat. And if you're on carnivore and you overdo it a little bit, you're going to be running to the bathroom. I would say ribeye is the way to go for me. And I like to, if I can have 2 ribeyes in a day, great. But my big thing is ribeye. So 1 pound ribeye and 1 pound of ground beef. And I'll take the ground beef and I'll make 4 quarter-pound patties out of it. And I'll have that because I'm getting a little bit higher fat intake because I do like an 80-20. I don't like to go there's like the 75-25 for those patties, but they're just too gloppy. I want a little bit of meat in there. So I'll do 80-20 or I'll do the 15%. And I'll have that because I get a little bit more fat, but it's also I have different texture. And I found that you do get a little bit of a texture fatigue in steaks. And I've switched from ribeye to New York, even though I like ribeye more. Sometimes like the just texture of a New York strip and the fat on the back of the New York strip, it just tastes better because of the texture. So I really jump back and forth between ground beef, ribeye, and then also the New York strip steak, just based on texture. And then for convenience piece, so I don't have to go out and grill, especially in Chicago. When it's really cold in Chicago, like I can do stuff in the pan, which is fine. But then maybe within the last year, I've added eggs, and I've actually feel better adding eggs. And I did it more of a convenience piece because I now live in a new place that has like a rooftop grill. You got to go all the way upstairs, and it's a pain in the ass, especially in the winter. So I started just making more eggs, and I feel a little bit more better. I feel better with a little bit more egg in my diet as well, instead of just eating the meat, but that's just me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's an eggs rich in choline and some other things that maybe is beneficial. Do you, are you spending any time on social media talking about this stuff? Is that something that you do, or do you stay away from that?
I do. I have a social media account, which is Tony_Primal Foundations. And my tagline used to be carnivore athlete, like just straight across the board, carnivore athlete. And I was like, I'm doubling down on this. I feel like there's some people that get deterred away from it. If they see carnivore, they're just like, that might be a little much. So my company is called Primal Foundations, and it's based on 4 foundations of strength, nutrition, recovery, and movement. And the nutrition piece is, and I've had a bunch of people on Dr. Bill Schiller, I just had actually on this morning. Mm-hmm. We talk about what I call it primal aligned, but getting people away from this notion that animal protein is bad and starting to realize that we need animal protein, we need animal fats in our diet, because not only is it beneficial, but this is the most optimal for us as humans. And whether you're going to, again, I don't want to be super dogmatic and deter people, because this is just the world we live in. It's these polar opposites. And as we see on social media, it's just one way or the other. But if I can get people to realize that having animal protein and fats is good, and to implement in their diet and not be afraid of it, and limit some of the things that they're eating in terms of vegetables and fruits, and have it as more of a small piece of the diet versus the main dish, I think that's beneficial to a lot of people. And then also whether you're carnivore, ketovore, primal, whatever, let's get down to this on the same page. Let's just eat real food. Like getting this stuff out of the boxes and packages is not real food. Giving your kids cereal in the morning every morning, that's not real food. Let's get on that same page. And I think the world will be a little bit better place if we could just get on the same page. But that's my big push in terms of nutrition, is getting people to really understand why we need animal protein and animal fats.
Yeah. And I think that the other, like you said, getting rid of the stuff in the boxes, the ultra processed stuff. And a study just came out linking depression to the high amounts of ultra processed food we eat, which is not surprising. We have something like, I can't remember, I think it's 1 out of 4 adults is medicated for a mental health disorder these days, which is quite disturbing to think about. Every 4th person is on some sort of drug for mental health issues. And so the diet is definitely doing that. We have a few minutes left. Tony, if you got anything, is there anything you wanted to share that we didn't get to talk about?
No, just the main points of that. This diet is one, it's helped me for sure. Again, relationship with food, athletic performance, and also this mental aspect of just being more confident and being able to navigate the world a little bit better, because I'm not thinking about food all the time. And that's a piece of it too, is not consuming yourself with meal prepping all day and doing all these things. And it's got to be food. What are my macros? No, let's just get down to the basics. Let's talk about let's eat good food, and it'll all work itself out from there.
Yeah, fair enough. Perfect. Tony, thank you for one, coming here and sharing your story, and then obviously spreading the word out in other channels. I think that's how we're going to change the overall landscape of where we go, because we've got so many people who are sick and suffering, and it's probably unnecessary. So thanks for doing that. For the rest of the folks, thank you for being here. We'll be back again tomorrow with another, I think, pretty interesting one. So you guys, thanks everybody. Tony, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn. Thanks everybody for showing up.